Hello and welcome to the Nintendo Switch Online Game Club, the show where we play through the games available on Nintendo's various NSO apps completely at random. I'm your host, Derrick, and in this episode, I'm joined by both Brandon Miracle and Daniel Alba, fellow members of Good Vibes Gaming and the original lineup we had for the very first episode back when we played Xevious. Brandon, let's start with you. How you doing?
I'm sprightly. That's how I'll put it.
I like to hear it. What about you, Daniel? How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. I just got off of playing Final Fantasy VII, and now I'm going to play something that isn't Final Fantasy VII. You better be thankful, Derrick.
I am very thankful because we're all taking time away from Final Fantasy VII for this. But as you're both likely aware, there are now over 200 games across the NSO, and while some are widely known like Super Mario Bros. And Zelda, there are some odd picks that could be considered hidden gems. We honestly don't know. So what we do is enter all those games into a randomizer, pick one, and then give our initial thoughts. And this week, the Wheel of Games has chosen Kid Chameleon for the Sega Genesis. What is our familiarity with Kid Chameleon? Daniel, let's start with you. Have you heard of Kid Chameleon at all?
Kid Chameleon is one of those ones that has a catchy name. I recognize that name from, just people talking about the road past retro games and from the Genesis. The Genesis isn't really one that I've delved into the library of as much as I wish I have. It's mostly been like Sonic games for me on the Genesis. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that I've had an interest in playing more of those games on the Genesis. So NSO is a perfect excuse to do that. And Kid Chameleon, looking at it, I realize I don't recognize what I'm looking at all. So
fitting. What about you, Brandon?
I'm not even sure if I've heard of this game before, to be honest. Like, Kid Chameleon is that kind of, 90s sounding name that it could literally have been anything. It could have been an album. It could have been a movie. It could have been a cartoon. But no, it's a 90s video game that I have never, like Daniel, I've never even seen, with my eyes. And my, experience with Sega is very limited. I think more limited than anybody at GVG. When I was a kid, and I mean 5, 6, 7 years old, I didn't know Sega was the company. I thought Sega was the hedgehog. That's how little about Sega I knew.
Oh boy.
Sega the Hedgehog.
Sega the Hedgehog.
So I have a distinct memory of being at a friend's house. I think it was a birthday party or something. And I kept saying, I want to play Sega. And I was talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. And then this dude kept pointing at the console and saying, no, the Sega's right there. And I'm like, but I want to play Sega.
Give me Sega. You kind of got justified with the fact that there is a game called Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. So
this is true.
There you go.
I assume my confusion comes from the classic opening Sega when you have Sonic running across the screen. So, what else am I supposed to think?
I mean, fair. So, I actually have only a little bit of familiarity with Kid Chameleon. I did grow up with the Genesis. That was my second ever console because, well, I really wanted Sonic. I was a kid. Sonic looked cool. I wanted the Genesis. So I got the Genesis instead of the Super Nintendo. But I also was at the time where it's still my parents buying me games because I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know any have gaming magazines at the time to know what was good or not. So it was sort of just picking off the shelf, and Kid Chameleon never struck my attention. But you look at that box art, and good God, it is 90s hell because you got the kid with the shades, the leather jacket, looking like a greaser from the 50s. It is, that is totally 90s aesthetic. And I have played this game before, but not for very long because I had Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on the PlayStation 3. And I played enough of every game on there to get the trophies. So I played enough to Kid Chameleon to get the trophy on there, which does not take long. It is one of the easiest platinums you could get on that system. And I remember nothing for it. I think there's a transformation mechanic. I think that's why you're called Kid Chameleon, is because you can transform into different forms. And again, based on the box art, there seems to be a lot of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know much else. So that would all. I have to kind of consult the wiki on that sort of thing. And guys, we're kind of in for a beefy one. There was 103 levels in this game.
Oh,
Whoa!
okay then.
Did not expect that. Okay.
Yeah. Um, Apparently, according to the wiki, most levels contain a flag, which is the primary goal of each level, from which the player progresses to the next. There are teleporters that you can warp to different levels and stuff like that, and there are shorter levels that are so only half of these are on the main path, which means going from flag to flag.
Hmm.
The 32 of them are smaller unnamed levels, simply called elsewhere, which again I don't know much about. But we're also fortunate that we're playing this off the NSO because there's no password or save system with this game. You had to beat all that in one
Oh,
go.
oh,
Excuse me. Okay.
that's 100 something levels in one run. That's a Genesis game already.
For sure. For sure. Um, but yeah, as far as reviews, I see some high ones. I see some not so high ones. I don't know what we're in for.
I'm expecting my anticipation is very middle of the road. I look at this box art, I just see the wizard, and we've all seen the wizard. It's it's
Oh yeah.
bad.
It does not raise hopes, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's boy, it's charming as a '90s game, but who knows if it's actually good.
But you
Yeah,
never
there's
know.
a yeah, there's a lot of I don't know. The energy I look at it while looking at the title and the box art is just yeah, classic 90s. I feel like I could have seen this anywhere. It could have been a show, it could have been some kind of comic. But yeah, it's something to look into for sure because I mean, Genesis has such a big history of different titles and things that you can only play on there. So Kid Chameleon, I'm open to playing it. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. It's a platformer apparently, so yeah, I just I feel like I'll be able to adjust to it easily enough.
Mm-hmm. Um, so some interesting history that I'm seeing here as I'm looking at this is that this was developed by the Sega Technical Institute, and that's interesting in of itself because one of the key programmers and someone who well actually the founder of it and one of the key programmers of this game is Mark Cerny. If you guys are
Hmm.
familiar with him, went to work on PlayStation, just helped out Insomniac a lot. It's just he's just been a kind of a legend in the industry, and I believe it seems like if I'm reading this correctly, Kid Chameleon came out before Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So this is the game Sega Technical Institute worked on Sonic 2. This was the game they made before that. So
Okay.
Okay.
maybe
Is
good.
it? It's interesting though to see the Sega Technical Institute be brought up because I always remember I have the physical box of like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, and if you look at the back and on the bottom, it says their headquarters was pretty much where I live now, right here in California. Right now they're located in Palo Alto, which is actually it's funny that's where our family ramen shop is located, so they're probably not too far from each other, or at least where it used to be. And yeah, weird history with that. Honestly, it's cool to see that someone like Mark Cerny was involved in some way.
Mm-hmm. I got a line up their list here because they had both the Japanese and American side. So the American side, which Cerny headed, worked on Dick Tracy, Kid Chameleon, helped with development of Sonic 2, Sonic Spinball, Comic Zone, The Ooze, Die Hard Arcade, and then, of course, the canceled Sonic Extreme where it all ended. So, interesting stuff. But yeah, that's, boy, did not realize this game had that kind of history in terms of Sega.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how the game pans out given when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's still like I guess it's like fairly early
Yeah.
in terms of being a Genesis game.
Yeah.
Looks like it came out March of '92. So yeah, it's definitely early in the life because wait, really? I didn't. God, I didn't realize this. The Genesis launched in America in '89. For some reason, I thought it was like a
Wait, what?
90, yeah, a 91 game. But no, apparently, according to Wikipedia, launched in '89 and just got it ahead of the game that much sooner than Nintendo with the Super Nintendo. Because, yeah, the Super Nintendo didn't come out until '91. I always thought they would sort of day and date with each other, but no, Sega had like a 2 year head start.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I did not realize that. I thought it was 91 myself.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. That it's funny because like yeah, that division had done certain games sooner than others. Like I believe Sonic 2 did in fact release in the West before Japan because it was developed in that area in California. So weird history with the Genesis being not being released worldwide, but kind of staggering between being released in Japan or over here in the West beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. Well, any other thoughts, hopes, dreams in regards to Kid Chameleon? Any of the forms on this cover that you're looking forward to playing as?
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just looking forward to seeing what I think and feel about this game once we get started.
I'm
Will
a
I do
Casey
100
Jones
stages?
fan. I'm a Casey Jones fan through and through, so ski mask guy.
uh,
That's what I'm
yeah,
looking forward to.
yeah. I got to go with the guy that's just a literal tank. Oh,
What a life.
I got to see what that's all about. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! The American box art now I have it bigger. It says the cover of the box says 100 plus levels, 1,850 plus screens. They were counting
What a
screens.
way to mark your game. How many screens there are.
Oh gosh, good old days of gaming. All right. Well, we will take the next week to play some Kid Chameleon. We'll be back with all of you very soon. But until then, bye.
Hi, Dad.
Where you been?
Jeff's house. New Genesis game. Kid Chameleon. 100 levels. 1,800 screens. Longest I've ever played.
That's good, son.
Every time I changed helmets, I was someone else.
That's nice, dear.
Skycutter, Cyclops, Juggernaut. I kept transforming.
Everybody's saying
Can't. Later, Mom.
What's with him?
he's just having an identity crisis.
New Kid Chameleon, the multiple personality game, only on Sega Genesis.
And we're back after a week of playing Kid Chameleon for the Sega Genesis. And remember, this was a game Sega Technical Institute developed before helping with Sonic 2. But is it a good start? What do you think, Brandon?
Well, the thing about this game is that it does not leave a very good first impression. The controls are a little slippery. The level design, I might get some hate for this. The level design reminds me a lot of some of the earlier Kirby games, which were just a lot of squares put together. Which might be even more true with a game like Kirby Star Allies. It just feels like a lot of blocks that got slapped together without much of an idea behind them. Yeah, it definitely is a game from that era. This is a game that is designed to get you to spend your allowance on it for repeated rentals. Because boy, is this game full of BS.
Oh boy, is that the truth. The rewind button was my friend because I think I'd be losing it if I didn't, use that all the time. But
Oh my
Daniel,
god.
let's get your thoughts real quick, Daniel. What'd you end up thinking of Kid Chameleon?
I listened and well, I booted up the game, watched the intro, and I was like, "This is a game from the '90s." The whole premise is just like you're the only one tough enough to handle this virtual world. He is Kid Chameleon. It's just that kind of energy that went through it, and yeah, I don't know, man. I had a feeling that this game was going to be something that, like, yeah, the Genesis isn't really something that I really had a lot of experience with. I only played very few like Sega games back then that weren't Sonic, by the way. And jumping into this, there's definitely like a feel to it. There's that Genesis crunch with all the audio and the music effects that happen throughout the game. Some songs later are just like grating on the ears to a certain point. But yeah, like I like I don't want to like harp on the game for the entire time because I think there's some ideas there. The fact that your power ups turn you into a different like entity to play as with a completely different gameplay style. They don't change too much, but some of them also don't really choreograph like what you can do as them. And there are some I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can climb in this form. That would have been good to know.
Yeah,
Instead of just
right.
hopping around like
Pushing
you know which
buttons to
one
figure
or
out.
which
Like I had
parts.
to actively look that one up. The others I figured out on my own eventually, but that one I had to like, what the hell do I do with this thing?
Yeah.
It's interesting. The power-ups are kind of a mixed bag because in the beginning I was like, these are just kind of okay. The samurai one is fine. He gets a little melee attack. It's not super useful.
It's a
The
pogo
Jason
stick.
mask, very useful because you get a projectile.
That's the best one by far.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. So anytime that one popped up, I loved it. For a while, I thought the armor was just 5 hits instead of 3 because I was like, what else does this thing do? But no, you can climb, you can break things underneath your feet. And I'm like, okay, they use it a little bit more in later levels. It's fine. Um, but I found that they kind of hid some of the coolest ones in the back half of the game, like the fly. The fly gives you the Mega Man X wall jump, and that's
Yeah.
sick.
Not a lot of opportunities to use it, but yes, you do get the Mega Man X wall jump.
There's also the cyclone spinny one. I don't even know what it's called, but like you turn into a like a Sentai warrior and you jump in the air and you the Tasmanian devil spin, and it lets you fly infinitely as long as you're tapping the A button. That one mechanically was kind of difficult to control, but at the very least it was fun and different. So there was a little bit of joy happening when I got that the first time.
Yeah. I yeah, it is definitely a mixed bag of powers. It's a mixed bag of everything because the core ideas here are fine because you have, it's 90s as hell, but there is something charming about the idea that there's this uh arcade with this virtual reality setup, and it's so difficult that the villain of this game is kidnapping kids, and so this kid Chameleon is the only one good enough at games that he has to rip off his leather jacket, go in with his white tee, and just take on this game and rescue those kids. It's dumb, but it's also kind of like a proto Comic Zone, which I definitely dig Comic Zone, but it's like it wants to be Mario, but it doesn't know how to do it. The controls are
Yeah.
too slippery and the power-ups are too... Well, I can tell you right now what the issue with the power-ups are. You need some of them to progress. Like, you
Yes.
cannot beat certain levels
Yeah.
without those power-ups. And let me tell you, it is very easy to lose these power-ups. And again, thank God I could rewind, because otherwise you have to just kill yourself. And there's not that a lot of extra lives, continues, or anything like that unless you're rewinding and taking advantage of that. And
I
yeah.
I can remember one specific instance. It was on one of the first ice stages. I can't remember if it was the first or second world, where you needed, God, what power up was it? I think it was the one that gives you like the spike helmet.
Oh,
And
that
then
was
it-
terrible. You have
Yeah, I
to like
hate that one.
charge and run and break a wall in front of you. But if you don't have it, you have to like go back a convoluted set of tunnels to go outside. And there was something with that stage that just made me mad.
It has the teleporter at the end of the stage that in any other stage would actually bring you to another section to progress. That teleporter takes you back to the beginning
Oh, yeah.
to go find it. Yeah.
You see the teleporter and the end goal flag is underneath, like a wall underneath. And then I'm just like, will this help me get there sooner? And you go back to the beginning for no reason. And getting to that was a pain in itself because there was like the snow is falling and it's like
Oh
hurting you
my
as you're trying to
gosh.
platform
Oh,
getting
God,
up
that
there.
one sucked.
That's where I rewound the most because that was just a terrible time.
Getting the power up on that stage is hard enough. Keeping it is even harder because of the snow.
And you're on a time limit in every stage too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what got me the most about that level is if you get into the little tunnel where the flag actually is, there's a hidden block in there. We're going to get to hidden blocks in a second, but there's a hidden block in there that has the power up in it if you didn't find it. I found it
Yeah.
by accident. I was so mad when I found it because the answer was right there.
Yeah.
Why not
yeah.
just have it be visible? Why would you have your player go through all that pain? Because they'll find it by accident. There's like a little lip in the ceiling, and that's where it was hidden in there. And then you're like, you got a clear shot. Otherwise, you have to like trudge all the way back and try to find a power up again.
And run out of time doing it.
Yeah. Man. There's so many aspects to cover here. I'm not even sure where to start. I guess we'll go with some of the more obvious ones, or just sort of the miscommunication. Obviously, it was likely in the manual and all that, but we don't have manuals on the NSO, which is I think a major issue for the service. But it is what it is. How long did it take you guys to figure out what the hell you do with diamonds that you pick up?
I never figured it out.
Oh, I
still don't know.
I have maxed at 99, and they all just disappear when I grab them now.
When I realized this isn't the extra life counter thing. No, what they do is if you hit the A button plus start, it uses a special diamond power that each ability, each power up has a different one of. So you can have like a rotating shield, for example, that takes out enemies near you and stuff like that. And it'll take up like 30 to 50 or something like that. I didn't use it that often, but it's also like, okay, so thanks for letting me know.
Tell me that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, obviously this is the age of manuals. You learn that stuff from the manual, but there's no obvious way because you have your run button, you have your jump button, and you have your special button. I guess they're out of moves at that point, buttons that you can use, but I don't know. It feels like there's a more graceful way to let you know that, the action button that doesn't do a whole lot with a lot of characters outside of something very specific would be nice to be able to use something like, hey, this uses your diamonds or something to that degree. I don't know.
And if you have to use a button macro, the action button plus start doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why not use the action button and like jump?
Yeah, or down or up.
Or down, exactly. Yeah. I would have never pressed the action button and start at the same time. Nothing would have possessed me to try that.
That sounds like a soft reset option to do instead of like an actual function of the game.
Yep. It's aggravating for sure. And you're talking about the levels feeling kind of Kirby-ish, Brandon. I don't know if I fully agree with that because to me, they remind me of those platformers where instead of having to reach the goal, you're collecting a bunch of stuff in the level, which unlocks the goal. Like, let's say Little Nemo type games, where it's sort of all over the place, but it so often doesn't communicate what the hell you're supposed to do. There was a section I was wandering around in circles for ages until I finally realized, oh, there's a false wall here. I could just walk through it.
Oh.
Thanks.
There was one level that was full of false walls. I think it was like one of the jungle stages. It's false walls all the way to the exit. And if you don't know they're there, it's going to be kind of hard to have that communicated to you. That's the same problem. The game has the same problem with hidden blocks. Some levels rely on hidden blocks. And it's not until like the second half of the game that you get that like RoboCop power that gives you like the green beam that shows you where every hidden block is. For one, it took me forever to figure out what that thing was doing. But once I did, I was like, oh, this is actually useful.
Of course.
Don't put required platforming or required power-ups in hidden blocks. Please.
It feels like they wanted to make the power-ups more useful than Mario at the time. But
yeah,
I don't know. There's just something like the fact that you can lose these power-ups, I think, takes away from that idea.
Yeah, the whole execution of that was just kind of off. It wasn't really what they should have been going for. Because yeah, with any Mario game, you get a power up, you have an ability that enhances what you can do. You can you can try yourself through a course faster, but you don't ever like need an ability like that unless you're going for like sometimes in like Super Mario World, you can use the cape to find a hidden exit, for example.
Right.
But that's not like you're not progressing through the main everything by doing that. There's the other goal that you can just reach normally. But then when you're implementing that kind of logic in a game that's in a platformer game like Kid Chameleon, that just kind of leaves your player kind of annoyed and aggravated as far as like, oh, I need to have and retain this power up all the way to the end. And sometimes in the stage, there's multiple power ups. So like sometimes you'll have one, and then you'll get another one of which you don't need the ability of, and so you're kind of stuck for a moment. And it's just like, well, I would prefer it if they just kind of pick one power up and just let that be that one power up throughout the entire stage. I think that would communicate things a bit better from start
That'd
to
be
finish.
taking a note out of Mario's book. You know, they design levels around a single idea. It's funny to think about this from a Mario perspective because later on in the series with Super Mario Galaxy, Sunshine, and 64, those had power-ups that were required to get the star or find the goal or whatever. But the power-ups in those games work differently, especially like in Mario 64 and Galaxy and even Sunshine. You don't lose your power-up when you get hurt. It just changes your innate abilities. And I think that would have been a better compromise here.
Yeah, you just become that. Like, yeah, you get a few extra hits by taking on those powers. That's sort of the idea. But I think I'd rather just die with the power. That way you can better design the level around it and not have that frustration. I think that is one of the biggest problems with the game.
Yeah, I mean, you get 2 HP in your standard form, your human form, kid form. And then most power-ups, save for the suit of armor, are 3 HP. Why not meet in the middle at like 3 or 4 HP, and instead of refilling your health when you get a power-up, just put health items in the level? There's so many blocks to hit, and most of them just have diamonds.
And you guys weren't using the diamonds, so
Exactly.
They were useless to me.
so boy, that was a whole lot of pointless for a while. Oh God, for sure.
It's hard to like blame the game too much for stuff like this because a lot of it is in hindsight. Because what it's doing is novel in a way. I can't think of a lot of games that had power-ups that worked like this. Outside of something like Metroid, but those become part of your kit rather than just be, what you are. So I commend it for that, for trying something like this. It didn't quite stick the landing. In fact, I don't think it got anywhere near it. But, I commend a game for trying something new. And while I was not really looking at games like this back then, I don't even know if I was alive when this game came out. I don't remember what year it came out.
92.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even exist yet.
Oh God, I was 7.
I was -2.
Oh.
Yeah, it's hard for me to blame the game. I think trying something new and failing is better than staying too safe.
Yeah,
That's
there's
fair.
a lot of power-ups in here that they do things that I wouldn't really expect other games to do, as you were mentioning, like the one that has the spikes in front. It turns your dash into an attack itself, and you can use that to interact with your surroundings. You can break some blocks with that or charge through enemies. Like still haven't really seen too many platformers that utilize a power-up like that have you interact in that way. There's the one power-up that turns you into like the car, the tank where you can shoot things in front of you. It doesn't really fit very well. It's hard to platform with that, but it's pretty cool that you can shoot projectiles that way. As you mentioned, the fly makes you really small, and you could do wall jumps with it. So just a lot of different ideas, kind of compartmentalized into different power-ups in that way. That kind of made the direction a bit difficult to follow because it wasn't really cohesive in that way. But there was still a lot of
Yeah.
different ideas that they're still playing with. Like the samurai had a wimpy little slash, but it also had the pogo stick attack. If you aim downwards, you can kind of bounce on things, which as we've now seen in other games at this point. But yeah,
I was a little
it's just
disappointed
yeah.
in that move specifically because you can do damage by jumping in kid form anyway, and I don't think it does any more
I
damage.
think it just breaks blocks.
Just yeah,
Oh, it breaks blocks. That's right.
Yeah.
yeah. That's the main thing.
But then that's what the knight does. So you all you get is a little piddly sword slash, which honestly I did find
Little slight.
somewhat useful because good God, the platforming is so loose in this game. Like they have you platform off
Yeah.
of so tiny platforms so often. And then it add on to the fact that your jump height seems to be variable depending on your speed that you're running, and trying to get the momentum right is a pain in the ass a lot of the times. Like I was not happy a lot of the times with the platforming. I'm like, oh God, I just have to deal with this and find a way
There's
up, and ugh.
there's one level in either World 2 or 3 that expects you as the player to like jump up on a single block. You have one block of width and you have to get to a block that's too high with your normal jump. So they're expecting you to jump up, land back on the block to build momentum and jump up higher. That's a lot to ask for a kid, man. I had trouble doing that.
There's some mean ones. Like there's one also in stage 2. Like it's the blocks are disappearing and reappearing over and over again, and so you have to jump on. You have to jump onto the blocks as they reappear, and then jump again as they disappear, and then you land on the tire level when those ones appear again. And that's like my brain can only handle so many directions right now. This is a lot to take in and to continuously do going vertically upward.
That one took
And
me a
it's
while.
not it's not very forgiving either. Like if you happen to be inside the block when it appears, sometimes it'll bounce you up, which is nice. But it's always like at the peak of your jump that they're spaced apart. So they're making it as difficult as possible. There's very little leeway.
Yeah, they expect you to get good at this. And again, I was using the rewind liberally in this to the point that I think I had like 6 continues by the time as far as I got through, just because I was like, nope, just moving on. Nope, just moving on, because you die so easily.
I felt the same. It was the same way for me. Like the first couple levels I played through without rewinding much. And then when I saw the kind of level design that the game had, I was like, nah, I'm 30 years old. I have other things to do.
It's only so much time I can spend. I got a new controller for my NSO, and one of the first things I did was play Kid Chameleon. What
Oh,
an
man.
honor
Oh
for this
yeah,
controller.
there you go.
Really
Perfect.
breaking
What
it
an
in
honor.
with this one.
Definitely. Oh my gosh.
So I looked it up just to see how close did I get to the end of this game, and it turns out there are we've said before in the preconceptions that apparently there's like over 100 levels in this game. Only I think 54 of them are required. Like you have these secret levels, which I found a few of, but honestly I'm just going for the exit. I was not searching for secrets or whatever they really offered, because you could find a few extra lives, but they were definitely not common. But yeah, I looked it up and I got to level 31 out of the 54, and I'm like, I'm good.
I got to I think it was 46. It was like somewhere halfway into World 3.
What's it called? Do you remember the name of the level? I can look it up right now, because I
Let me
finished
pull it
off by fighting the boomerang bosses, which I think we really talked about. We haven't really talked about the bosses, but there also aren't a lot of bosses in this game. So yeah.
Yeah. I was like, is this just all stages and levels? And then all of a sudden there's just terrifying monster shows up. Shishka boss is what they call
That
it.
is right. That is what it's called.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
I love the name. God, that thing was terrifying though to look at.
It was Wind Castles 2, I believe, is where I was,
Okay. Let's see here.
which is in stage 3.
I think you're
So
like in the
so
middle
you were
of
just
stage
slightly ahead of me. You're at level 37.
Okay, I way overshot where I was. Also, why are the levels broken up this way? Why are there so many levels per world?
I couldn't even. I'm just surprised you can tell the delineation between worlds because I can't. It's just like here's this random theming. Here's this random theming. Okay, here's this theming again, but it's somewhat different, and it's like or it has a different name. I don't know.
I'm on the wiki, and it's like you have a bunch of these levels, and then you have Shishka boss. They consider that stage 1. Then a bunch of levels, boomerang bosses. That's stage 2.
Oh, okay. I did see that the third bosses are called Bagel Brothers, which again is the 3 friggin' heads that run around, except they fire energy blasts this time instead of boomerangs.
How does that get you bagels?
I have no idea. Like maybe they're in circles.
I can't look at these things like those eyes, and then when you defeat it, those eyes just pop out. I'm just like, oh god, what is happening? what do you guys do with bagels? They're not bagels.
At least the
first. Oh, go ahead.
I'll give the bosses one thing. They shower you in power-ups. They're not trying that hard to kill you on these. Which is appreciated after the literal hellscape you have to go through to get to them.
So looking at it, it looks like it is only those 3 bosses and then the final one, and that's our heady metal. I'm curious what he looks like because, good God,
is it the same as the other ones.
That's what
it's the same as the other ones.
Yes,
there's a boss called Plethora.
I mean,
that's where you fight heady metal in the last level. It's the same design, but like
it's vector graphics
with several eyes on each other.
Yeah. So like I'll put it in for our live audience there, and you'll get a little bit for the chat for otherwise. But yeah, there's the final boss. You jump on his head. So yeah, it's the same head boss all 4 times with just slightly different attacks.
I do like the vectorization of this because like every time you beat a level, you see the world unload in VR, which is kind of cool.
It's novel.
So having the boss look like that's pretty sick, actually.
It's the foreshadowing. I guess that's how they explain just having every level incoherently be like one biome to another because you're just loading different zones in. But man, do I get confused. I was in the middle of a stage somewhere, and then you touch one of those warp pads. I didn't realize you have to just stand still for a moment to activate. And then I ended up in like some urban area. I'm like, I guess I'm in the city now. Am I back in the real world? What is going on? You get through that, and then you're back in the jungle again. I'm just like, what? Why? Consistency is important in these kind of things.
It really did feel like they just wanted to just. This is ADD the game. They're just something different at all times.
This is like when you buy a licensed platformer game, like some random licensed platformer game, like on the NES, and it's just rats and snakes and other things that they don't fight in the actual licensed material. That's what's happening here.
Kinda, yeah. Oh God. Do we have any positive thoughts? Because as we said, we didn't want to. Like, Dano didn't want to rag on it the entire time. So I'm gonna guess there's something positive you have to say about the game.
I mean, it was back to the variety of different gameplay styles that they had. I think it's really, it's novel that they have so many different types of gameplay. They could have they definitely could have narrowed it down and focused on some of these more than others, because some of them do repeat like their functionality in certain ways, like when you're fully armored, breaking blocks beneath you, or when you're a samurai, you also can have those options to break blocks beneath you. But some of them where you actually have actual projectiles, like with the Jason mask, those could have been expanded on a bit more. Another thing I liked about this, I think I mentioned this after we finished recording the first time. The box art in Japan is really cool. It's essentially the same exact thing as the American box art, but with a very like manga, traditionally like Japanese style artwork. It's very close to that original one, and I like how they kind of complement each other. Although it's called Chameleon Kid in Japan, not Kid Chameleon.
How dare they?
Very important distinction.
Well, I look at Chameleon Kid, and I want to play that game. I look at Kid Chameleon, and nah, I'm past that. I'm passing up on that one.
Who's this nerd?
Right.
Yeah, isn't it? Art
Oh,
style can make such a difference in like the appeal it has in at first impression.
the funny thing is, it
Like
is
Kid
a
Chameleon, you're being
English
marketed
game.
to.
Yeah.
Chameleon Kid,
Oh.
they're just making a cool game.
The funny
Oh,
thing is, it
Fly's
is an
in here
American
too.
game, so Japanese did it better, I guess. I will say, I think the graphics are pretty good. They're definitely appealing
Yeah.
in their own ways. The enemy designs themselves, like that killer whale that walks around and will haunt my nightmares. But you know, the graphics themselves, there's some decent backgrounds. Like it's a appealing looking game. But I stopped bothering about what it looked like after a while, because it's just, and eventually it just boils down to blocks, bounce blocks. Here's ice blocks. Here's the blocks that where you touch them, spikes come out of them, which break other things, but can also hurt you. And it's okay.
Are annoying.
Yeah, you just focus in on the blocks after a certain point. So
I hope you like blind jumps that either get you hurt or just straight up dead, because this game has a lot of those.
the boy does it.
Perfect for rewinds. Yeah, the that's just so funny. I don't know. There's a lot with the way that they present the game that kind of is. It does have that appealing look to it, but some of it just kind of put me off right away. Like in the intro, the people's faces. I don't know why it is. The people's faces look like too real for sprite art. I'm just like, what's happening here? Even Kid Chameleon's face is a little bit. It's a little bit too real and non-kid like when I look at it, and it threw me off. I'm just like, please. Give me a power up. I don't want to be in this human form anymore.
That is true. Kind of big heads or whatnot, but yeah.
In the spirit of positivity, I forgot about the hoverboard power up. I really like that one.
I only found one level with that, but it was a lot of fun.
It took me a bit to realize, but like when you're mid-air and you press the action button, it flips the gravity. So like you can ride on ceilings and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I found
you'll
myself
have
jamming the
levels that are
special button every time I
multi-tiered.
got a power, just to see what the heck it did.
That's a whole game right there. Just flip the gravity.
I would have, yeah, for real. I would have played a whole game that was just that concept. That definitely cool. I feel like a lot of the individual abilities could have probably been expanded on and just been their own thing.
I mean, the Jason Mask one is definitely a lot of fun. That could make a full game. Oh wait, they did make that kind of with the what was it, Splatterhouse. I don't think you could throw.
I
the
love
axes,
Splatterhouse.
but
Yeah.
I'd rather play Splatterhouse.
Yeah. True.
Oh man,
enough.
and this also we could have done this together, Brandon. This has 2-player. Did you know this was 2-player mode?
Was it
We could have done
2-player?
this.
What?
Yeah. So
Must be
when
one
you
of
do
those
2-player mode.
take turn ones.
Yeah, it's pretty much like Mario Brothers, where one person does the stage and then they clear it or they die, and then the other player goes, and it's back and forth. But that we could have explored it that way on stream, Brandon. I didn't think about that until like it was too late.
Dang, I could have been Kid Chameleon and you could have been Chameleon Kid.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
We had it.
It's a missed opportunity. It totally is.
We could still do it if we ever wanted to have the urge to play Kid Chameleon Kid again.
I don't know that I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Neither do I.
Yeah. I guess with that, do we have anything else you want to say about Kid Chameleon before we give our final verdict?
It's a video game. I think I said that for Xevious too.
Oh no. Oh,
That's our trend this far. Wait, I played.
I
Kid
like this
Chameleon.
more than Xevious.
well, there you go.
There,
Yeah,
I'll
Yeah.
say that.
I was able to hold my attention longer playing Kid Chameleon over Xevious. So I remember playing Xevious on Star Fox Assault and saying that was okay, and then I came back to it, and when we played it after that, I said that was still okay. I played Kid Chameleon, and then after that, I was already on the Genesis app. I went and played Space Harrier 2 for a little while, and I was like, this brings back the good memories, because I used to play that with my dad. Why didn't we get that for NSO? Huh?
I'm sorry. The wheel, you know, knows all, and it just decided that us three needed to play Kid Chameleon. It's just destiny. So I guess let's make this official. Would you actually recommend this to anyone with an NSO or tell people to stay away with an NO? Daniel, let's start with you.
At the end of the day, when it comes to all the plethora of games I could play on NSO, I would give this an no.
What about you, Brandon?
I'm getting signals from another plane of existence telling me to say no.
Yeah, it's 3 for 3. This is an no. Like, yeah, you can check it out just to see what see what it's all about, but honestly, you can play through 5 levels. There you go. There's the experience. You might get to try out a few different powers as you go along. Some are cooler than others, but it just it just wasn't fun. It felt like pulling teeth every time I was like, had to sit down to play this, because it's just, all right, let's deal with its BS and get through it. So,
like we said, there are a couple moments where you can kind of peer through the cracks and say, oh, there's something cool here occasionally. But in the end, it just doesn't come together.
Yeah, I think that's its biggest issue. It has a lot of ideas, but they never gel. So.
Yeah, pretty much.
But what about all of you? Have you played Kid Chameleon before, or was this your first time? And before we go, where can everyone find you at? Brandon, plug away. I know we work on the same team and everything, but I'm sure you got other things to plug.
If you type in good vibes and also gaming into YouTube, it's Merrilleaf _ on Twitter. You can find me say all kinds of weird stuff over there.
Perfect. What about you, Daniel?
You can find me also on the Twitters at Evernight Studio. I post a bunch of just thoughts on games, my graphic art as well that I'm doing on the channel and for other people in our community. And I'm also streaming twice a week at Official GVG on Twitch. That's every Thursday, every Tuesday, and sometimes I'll have Brandon on there. Hopefully, you can have you back soon, buddy.
I miss you.
He had a kid and she stole him away. Yeah,
I know the feeling.
That happens.
Oh, it does. But thank you both for joining me, and if all of you joining us enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments, and please consider supporting us at patreon.com/gvgaming, which includes our live audience tier that will allow you to watch Game Club live as it's being recorded. But now it's time for the Wheel of Games to choose next week's title, as I'm joined by my special guests, Jenny Geist and The Squire. Are you both ready to see what game we're playing?
I'm not sure. Could be not quite sure, but let's see what we get.
No, I mean, that's a proper reaction. Jenny, I hope we get something better for you. Or something at least with a little teeth to it. I think that's the bigger wish.
More than Yoshi NES, everybody's favorite.
Oh, totally. All right, let's spin the wheel. What are we going to get on our Wheel of Games? What are we going to be playing this week? And it is going to be, oh dear, Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo.
Oh.
Oh my word!
We lucked out. Yeah, I was concerned for a second when you said "oh dear," but I've been wanting to replay Metroid, like any Metroid game recently, so this works out perfectly.
So it's a funny story.
Yeah, funny story. We were just talking about Metroid before we actually started recording, but we'll get our full backstory on Super Metroid next time. But there you have it. We'll see you that next time as we cover Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.